Hi everyone, my name is Isabelle Couture. I'm the Senior Project Manager with the European Network of Living Labs. And it's my pleasure today to welcome you to this event on behalf of the Nishunes Project Consortium. So today's session is one of the many sessions that we'll be hosting as part by the project group of Nishunes. And it is a part of the preparatory step to support the implementation of the EU mission, A Soil Deal for Europe. 100 living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition towards healthy soils by 2030. So this month and next, yes, the Nishunes partner will be hosting several of these sessions, engagement sessions across 43 member states and associated countries, so many more to come. And we're really glad to be here in Belgium today so that we can engage you, our stakeholders, as part of today's presentation. We are also organizing a range of side events at different stages to facilitate networking within and across countries and between stakeholders in various land uses and professions to facilitate applications to the EU Living Lab calls. So we have a fantastic agenda for you today. My colleague Giulia Campodonico from Enol as well, our head of project, will be providing an overview of the soil mission, explaining also what living labs and lighthouses are. I will also be coming in to do a little bit of a discussion around living labs and how we can help, they can help achieve healthy soils. And then we'll present the key points of this year's open calls as well. And we have two great local experts that are joining us today to present the regional context. We have Grish Rechat and from the Senior Researcher, Sustainable Soil Management from the Flanders Institute for Agricultural, Fisheries and Food Research joining us. And we also have Didier Stillman, head of department at the Walloon Agricultural Research Center. So really our aim today is that by the time that you leave today's event, you see living labs as the way forward to the transition towards healthy soils, and you are inspired to co-create and participate in the soil-focused living labs. So a few housekeeping items before we get this event underway. First, we will share the participants list with names, institutions, and email addresses with you, the participants, so that we can facilitate networking and further sharing of information. We'll have other ways for you to connect, which we will present about later on. We will take photos as part of today's event. If you, for any reason at all, you do not want to be part of the pictures, just let me or my colleagues know and we'll make note of that, or you can send an email to our info@nishunes.eu. And if you have given your consent during registration to receive updates from the Nishunes project and to hear about other soil mission related initiatives, you always have the right to withdraw your consent, and you can do so by emailing info@nishunes.eu. This is a hybrid event, so we have participants joining us online. Hello, everyone. And the Zoom meeting will be recorded. For everyone here, if you're wondering, the washrooms are just through the door right there and to the right. Perfect. Okay, so with that, I would now like to welcome our host, Anne van Houwacht, and coordinator of NCP Flanders to say a few words. Thank you so much for welcoming us.
Good afternoon. So first of all, welcome to this beautiful building of 1880. It's called Hoek 38, which means literally corner 38, stands for Habitat for Research and Knowledge. And here's also the NCP Flanders hosted. So NCP, what stands it for the ones who don't know, it's a national contact point. We are advisors guiding all stakeholders. We in Flanders guide them of the stakeholders located in Flanders, guiding through Horizon Europe, and also we recently also Digital Europe. NCP Flanders is a cooperation between FWO, here the Research Foundation, and VLAIO, Flanders Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I'm the NCP coordinator, also advisor in legal and financial issues. And there are also more NCP present in the room, so I would invite Patrick de Mulder to present yourself, that people know you.
Patrick de Mulder, working for VLAIO. And I'm part of a job with LCP for Horizon Europe, Cluster 6, and also LCP for the mission soil.
Okay, and there is Matthias Lucas.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Matthias Lucas. I'm the contact point for the stakeholders located in Wallonia. And I'm contacting the Horizon programs, Cluster 6, missions, life program as well, and circular biodiversity program.
Okay, and there's Benedict de Brouwer.
Hello, my name is Benedict. I'm the NCP in Brussels for Cluster 6 and also for Mission Soil and Water. So nice to meet you.
Thank you. And the region we are still missing, yeah, because we're a lot. It's the federal government, so the federal institutes can direct themselves to NCP Federal, and there the NCP is Pascal van Dinter, who is not present today. But whatever questions you have, please turn to us and we can guide you through. So I'm very delighted to be the host of this event, and I welcome all the interested stakeholders here and also who are connected. So the driving force of this meeting is, of course, the Horizon Europe project nations, so that will be explained in detail by all the other speakers. I just want to just picture a bit what is Flanders doing in this field. So we have an acknowledged tradition of research and innovation in the field of soil, agriculture, forestry, and bioindustry. And figures of 2022, I know they're older figures, but there's consolidated figures. They show a very high and successful participation of the stakeholders in Flanders in Horizon 2020 and Societal Challenge 2, so the field of food security, sustainable agriculture, and so on. We have counted participation in 230 projects with a funding of about 121 million euro. So it's a top society challenge in terms of amount of participation in Flanders. So it's we are renowned here, let's say. For the future, we will participate through FWO and VLAIO in 4 new partnerships of Cluster 6 that are currently being prepared. And Flanders is also involved in the TRAMI project. I don't know if you know of. It's a transnational cooperation and mission approach. It's an EU-funded project focused on making missions work by creating communities of practice, exchanging knowledge, and offering mutual learning. So above all missions, let's say. And on the other side, Flemish research institutes are also successful in the cause of the mission soil. ILVO, who is present and will be presenting itself, they participate in 5 soil mission projects and coordinates 2 of them. I would like to finalize this introduction by saying that this event was not possible without the active participation of AgroLink, the Flemish Department of Economy, Science and Innovation, and the Centre Wallon de Recherche Agronomique. I wish you all a pleasant stay in our habitat and a very fruitful meeting.
Hello, sorry for my voice. I hope you can all hear me. It gets better the more I talk, so sorry for that. I'm Julia. I have it, right, I do have it. So with this low voice, what I'm trying to address now in this first presentation is why we're here, what is the mission. I assume most of you already know the mission, but let's just remind what we're all called to work on. So the life on Earth depends on healthy soils. Depends on many other aspects, but healthy soils is really at the core, because as you can see also in this picture, soils is impacting so many different ecosystems that affect our daily life. So soils, healthy soils are really crucial for us to continue, for our future generation to have healthy life. And that's why the Commission has agreed on defining soils as one of the 5 missions. And in the implementation plan we see here, there's really identified the need for tackling unhealthy soils that usually are unhealthy because of us, because of our bad behavior, of our bad habits. And what we want to do is, what the Commission wants to do is really to change our approach and also change this from the different perspective, from the education, from our understanding, because sometimes even a minor action doesn't realize how this is impacting the health of our soils. And this is also important, and that's why with Nations we're really targeting all the different countries, because this is addressing every country in Europe. As you can see, 2/3 of the European soils have different problems. I come from Italy, we have many, but I'm sure that here in Belgium, even with the different peculiarities you have with different landscape, you can all find different solutions and work together. And this, it's really the unhealthy soils, is really causing also a lot of economical problems, because as you can see here, we're wasting more than 50 billion per year only to try to compensate the unhealthy soils. As I said, soil, in order to push this work, the Commission established soil as one of the 5 EU missions, which are these flag initiatives that really focus on important aspects that it cannot be addressed by simple work programs, but needs the effort of all the different actors. Together with soil, there's also water, smart cities, climate, and cancer. And soil is really linked to all of them in a way, so we can find a link to work in all of them. And the goal of the mission is to lead the transitions towards healthy soils by 2030. And this will contribute into a bigger picture. We didn't want to bother you with all the different policies where healthy soils are and the mission soil is linked to, but the first one is the Green Deals, but there's so many additional policies, so it's really fitting into the bigger picture of a healthier European Union framework. In particular, in the mission implementation plan, the Commission has identified 8 major specific objectives that you can read here, better than me reading them. And all of these are to be addressed by all the call for proposals that are funded under the missions, including the living labs. Each living lab will need to address at least one of these 8 specific objectives. And so reduce desertification, conserve and increase soil organic carbon stocks, stop sealing and increase the use of urban soils, reduce soil pollution and enhance restoration, prevent erosion, improve soil structure to enhance soil biodiversity, improve soil literacy, and you see I skipped the number 7 because the number 7 is implicit and linked to all of them, because all the other objectives are contributing to reduce the EU global footprint on soils. Sorry, apparently I didn't lost also my voice, but also my ability to speak today. Sorry for that. So the mission implementation plan, all these main goal in the long term, how can we make the soil healthy, is by creating 100 soil health living labs and lighthouses. The reason for this is because living labs and lighthouse can accelerate the innovation, the co-creation and uptake of solutions that they can find. My colleague Isabel, to relieve a bit my voice, will present better what the soil health living labs are. But in particular, the living labs will be key and essential to give visibility, to make everyone collaborate, not only researchers, not only the administration, all the actors to work together to find solutions for the specific problems we work on. And what is fundamental in all this approach and why living labs is because the Commission wants to use the bottom-up approach. It wants to have open science, interactive, participatory innovation, and with a strong stakeholder and citizen engagement, meaning that we really want solutions to come from the users. We don't want to develop solution and go to the user saying, hey, is this really what you wanted, right? Just tell me this is exactly what you wanted me to develop. No, it's them telling what they need so that you can develop something they really need together with new ideas. And only this approach is the one that will accelerate the co-creation and uptake of solutions. Aside to the specific and more scientific objectives, the Commission is structured in 4 operational objectives that we can call here building blocks. And the first one is about the research and innovation program. So it's really having the knowledge, the data, the information, the infrastructures that will help the mission soil to operate. The second one, which is the one we will focus more on today, is the living labs and lighthouses. So to create a network of 100 soil health living labs across all different regions, 100 different regions of Europe, 100 different types of land. So we're not only talking about agriculture, regardless of the mission being supported by the DG Agri, so the agricultural unit in the Commission. They really want to tackle all type of soils, so from urban and forest, nature, industrial or post-industrial. After this, the third block is about soil monitoring, so reporting how much our activities are really good for our soil, how they're contributing so that we can better select the initiatives and the practices that work the best. And the fourth one is promote, because if we want living labs to work with all the stakeholders, we need to prepare the ground to start making soil attractive and sexy, as we were saying, because it's something that is not that appealing sometimes. So we need to make it attractive and start educate all the actors, from little kids to grown-ups that sometimes are harder to convince than little kids. This is almost close to my to the end of this lot. You can see the living labs are really at the center. So they are the core element of the mission, and that's why the mission is called 100 Soil Living Labs. But they are really cooperating with all the different aspects on all the other different programs of the mission. We just come from an event, some of you were there, from where the Commission tried to organize and bring together the different projects funded under the Soil Mission. And here you really see that Living Labs needs to cooperate with all the different activities, with all the different projects. We will find informations and solutions from practitioners and research questions that can support practitioners and living labs from the research part, and they can gather scientific knowledge in order not to reinvent the wheel on one side. From the monitoring, they can give the proof of what they do, so they can benefit from the monitor indicators to understand what has been working in other cases, but they can also give and saying, this indicator doesn't work for me, try to improve it. So it really needs to be an open dialogue. And as I already presented the soil literacy, so it's really gathering the needs that can trigger new activities for living labs. What I'm presenting here now is the work in another project, a sister project of Nashoons, which is Prep Soil, which is the first project funded under the Mission Soil, which is preparing all the other activities. So the 4 blocks you saw before is trying to prepare. So we are preparing to understand what a soil health living lab should be, and we're also working on identifying what the needs of the different regions we're trying to tackle and to address are. Here you can see we're trying to classify the 3 main types: urban and industrial, nature and forest, agriculture, but there's many words in between that are not easily classified by only these 3 main categories. And of course, our experts later will present better the specific needs that they have for Belgium, but Here, it's really a preparation, and that can also be in support for you, especially from Belgium. You can also see what is going on and what has been already addressed there, so you can build on what has been done already. Prep soil is in progress. We started last summer, so it's really the beginning. But what is important is that there's many other projects that have started identifying soil needs. In particular, here I'm presenting the work that has been done by the AGP Soil. And here it's a really complicated table that we try to give a snapshot only. So what we're trying to define is all the technical terms that I will leave my colleagues later great to present better. But it's really trying to define the common elements between the different areas in Europe based on the characteristics, because it's important also is that the living labs needs to work together, so they can work together from different countries on the same challenges, giving different perspectives and co-creating the solutions. Ooh. So now I will leave the floor and the better voice to greet. Sorry.
Hello, good afternoon. Nice building indeed. I've never been here before, so. So I'm Greet Rijsgaard from Ilvo, and I was asked to say something about the challenges we face here. Of course, not such an easy task, and I guess all the people, especially from Belgium, you know, maybe as well as I do, what the main challenges are. But so I decided to present, and I come back then to the previous presentation. I will present some results we had from some stocktake activities when AGP Soil started, and that was feeding into the roadmap of AGP Soil. Oh. Okay, that way. And I will also present some needs that we have identified through the Carbon Counts project, especially on carbon farming. Okay, just some newspaper articles, and you can see some challenges we face here already. So certainly not all there. We see something about contamination was a very hot topic last summer. But also the nitrogen problem, of course, it's also a very hot topic. But the drought issues that we face more and more, also erosion, water erosion, but even wind erosion, climate change, so the need to mitigate the climate also. So actually, many challenges, and also, the wider audience is maybe also getting aware of that through all this news. So what we have done in 2020, and I guess many of you also have contributed to that. We had, at the start of AGP Soil, we were asked to take a kind of picture on the policy on soils, but also on the research that was going on here, and also on the knowledge system. So how is knowledge transferred and gathered and shared, etc. These are the results we got from Flanders, in fact, and so we have published them in 2 Ilvo mededelingen, and you can find them on the website. One is on the policy, and the other one is on the practice and the research. So 19 organizations have contributed to this, and so one of the questions we asked: what do you think will be the most important soil challenges we will face in Flanders in the upcoming decade? So not what is now important, and so they had to give a scoring, divide 100 points actually between all these soil challenges we had identified. So the most important was soil organic carbon, which is no surprise, I guess, because it's one of the major indicators also of soil health, and it's linked with many others. But also the water, because of these drought spells, it's getting very much of attention. But also soil biodiversity is a high interest. What is soil biodiversity? What does it do? Do we understand what it is? We need to understand better. Also the nutrients is still a very high issue here. problems with leaching and so on, but also soil physical issues such as erosion and having a good soil structure. We also had some questions on the policy. So we made an inventory on what policies do you already have in Flanders related to soils. What policies do have a direct or indirect impact on soils? And I talk here on agricultural soils. So what are the targets? Do we already have indicators? And so then we listed them, and the stakeholders, they have scored them. Like, okay, we have a target set here, for instance, for carbon. What do you think? What is the gap between, that's the light-colored bars, what is the gap between the ambition that is set and where we are now? So if you have a large bar, that means that there is a large gap. Or if there is no bar for salinization, it's simply because there is no target for the moment. So, and then we have the more dark color bars. That is actually, okay, we have the ambitions now here, the local ambitions. But what do you think should be the ambition if we want to? Yeah, if we look in the future. So, so you can see some. And then what we also asked was. How does policy react to that? So what are the management practices that are promoted or stimulated through policy? So you can see, for instance, a lot of organic matter, nutrient management, but also on crop rotations. And then we asked the same to the stakeholders, like, what do you think are the most important soil management that we should focus on to tackle the soil challenges? And you can see maybe it's more diverse. And one of the conclusions also was, we don't have to tackle, we don't have to work with one management practice. We have to combine them also, and know what is the impact of the combinations of these practices. Yeah, maybe some more boring slides and. It was about the research needs, and you can read more. It's a bit difficult, that one, to compile, but like for carbon, okay, what is the link with the other ecosystem services? We need to know more about the impact of tillage and nutrient management, but also the combination of crops, which is very much also, for instance, in agroecological movement, very important, and I also do think it's very important. The water dynamic, how does it work? What determines the water holding capacity? What could be water conservation measures? For soil biodiversity, there is a clear interest, I feel, in soil biodiversity, and many actors are looking for scientifically based indicators, target zones, but also what is the relationship between the soil management, the biodiversity, what impact does it have on plant growth, on crop yield quality, and ecosystem services? Of course, it's a never-ending story about the nutrients, optimization of fertilization, reduce losses. It remains very important here. And for the soil management, we need to know farmers are willing to invest and try new practices. They are always looking for alternatives, and so I think we have to continue also in the living labs to see what is the impact then of these new practices and the combination of practices they make. Also, I think a bit understudied is the impact of crops on soil and the crop rotations and so on. And then, of course, the whole study of the feasibility of some practices, the cost effectiveness, and how to stimulate the farmers to work on the healthy soils. So also the knowledge sharing between the farmers was really highlighted. And that was a bit of our conclusion of the study. So to conclude, I think the stakeholders said we need a kind of integrated soil vision. Of course, for the policy, because sometimes policy is counteracting and is not reinforcing themselves, but also for the knowledge system. So like an integrated working and integrated vision on how to move forward. And within that, there was also a need on a more structural, multicultural, multi-stakeholder soil network. So how to improve the stakeholder participation, but also how to improve dissemination to the different users. how to enable collaboration and training and incentivize and valorize soil quality, but also the tailor-made advice to the farmers, what is fit for their context. And then also, and actually when looking to the presentation, the previous presentation, I just realized actually it really very much matches what is defined in the soil mission. I didn't look at from that angle, but actually the Living Labs were supposed to work on soil literacy, so the knowledge platform, but also on getting connected, the monitoring. So actually it's all in there, and I think it's a good, the Living Labs will be a good vehicle to work on that. So there was also very much need for a centralized knowledge platform. So the data availability and the understanding, how can we work on that? How can we make it accessible? Standardized and harmonized methods also to measure some things. Soil monitoring, that was also a big issue. We need to know what is the status of our soils and what farmers do, what is the impact of that. What is the, also a big interest in can we use other methods for measuring soil health and assessing it? How can we use the data that is out there, and also the new technologies was very much highlighted. And so maybe my last point would be, we just finished the Carbon Counts project. That was a live project on carbon farming. We have also interacted with a number of stakeholders there, and the end result, one of the end results was actually a roadmap for upscaling carbon farming in Flanders. And the highest need we identified there was a need for really a public-private cooperation with 3 networks, like a navigation network, like having all stakeholders together to tackle the major issues on carbon farming, the questions, how to have decisions on the policy level, but also on the monitoring, like an MRV network. Can we work together to get the right data to develop this MRV methodologies, but also a network on the financing part. So what is in there for farmers? What is the risks that they are taking? How is the benefits divided over all the actors that are involved in this carbon farming, for instance? So, and just some advertising. So we will present this in a webinar on the 30th of March. It will be in English. We will present there these results, but we will maybe also interesting. We have some 5 very interesting speakers internationally, and they will share with us their experiences, their local experience, how they get organized. So the speakers from France, from Finland, from Denmark, from the Netherlands, and I forget one, I guess. And sorry about that, but you can see the agenda there, and you can still subscribe. It's an online webinar. So maybe what I didn't say yet, so I've talked about all these challenges and we can do, and of course there is already a lot ongoing, and I guess everybody in the room already knows, so we have already some living labs established, but we also have the Grondzaken program. It's from where government agencies work together on soils. We have the agroecological movement. I think it's also very nice to mention. We have B3W, it's an advisory service. And I guess there were in the past there have all pretty very interesting projects ongoing. So yeah, I think there is a lot to work further on and to make it a success.
Okay. Light the thing up. All right. Good afternoon. So thanks to the organizer to invite me to present the way we face the challenge of living labs and lighthouse farms research, because I will not focus on the challenge that the soil faced, but the challenge of developing some living labs and lighthouse farms research. I'm the head of the Sustainability System and Perspective Department in the Walloon Agricultural Research Center, but more specifically, I lead the research unit, that is the farming system unit, where we perform this type of research. And we mobilize a Living Labs approach on different topics, going from the development of the meat productions under organic systems, with the tensions that we can find between the referential of the organic farming systems and the tensions of the market that want some typical type of meat, or to valorize also grassland of high ecological value through the development of some specific beef productions, with the collaborations of the different actors that you can see there. I will not going through, but today I will focus more on topics that is in line with soil missions. That is the way to reduce tillage on the one side and pesticide use in stockless cropping systems. So starting from the knowledge of two farmers groups, one farmer group that is organic and one farmers group that is low-till farmer groups. I will not go through the other, but this is only some example of Living Labs on where Living Labs can be set up in order to solve some to solve some solutions where there are some high tensions between different actors. And so, only to come to the history of this Living Labs, we start from a visit in France that was organized by Grinotech and the Walloon Agricultural Research, and Grinotech that is here. Okay, you are there. During this visit, there were really a high interest of a group of farmers that are both from organic and or low-till side about the possibilities to reduce at the same times the tillage and the pesticide use, how to face this double challenge. And so, faced to this interest, we decided to start a research dynamic with them, and we underline some barriers to overcome and to solve this problem. It is the lack of knowledge that are specific to their situations, the technical and agronomical complexity of challenge. So as well, also as we already underlined, to face the risk that the farmer have to face during the transition phase, and how to solve this. This is another question. The difficulty also, and the third and the fourth point are quite close. The difficulty to reach a new equilibrium. This need times. So we need to work on a long time scales, and to develop some new practices to implement them and to reach this new equilibrium, and how to face the risk that we will encounter during this transition steps. So to face this barrier, we decided to start a collaboration involving 12 farmers in low-till and or organic systems, Grinotech as the advisor groups, and researchers from the Walloon Agricultural Research Center, both in social science and agronomical science. And so they developed with the support of different projects, Divers Impact, for example, it is an Horizon 2020 project. They developed these common visions and their target to farm without pesticide and tillage. And so each actor engage himself. The farmer committed himself to share for this experimentation and for this research, more than experimentations, to share some land. So 1 hectare of lands where they will implement some innovative practices that these practices are codified with the researcher, with the advisors and the farmer all together. And then aside from this field where they decide to implement these innovations, they have their control field where they maintain their current practices. So this allows to have some solutions that are and conditions that are representative to real conditions, to test these innovations in their specific context, and with the definitions of solutions that are that correspond to their expectations, to feed also the knowledge of all the group of farmers, and thereafter to communicate on this to a larger scale for sure, to work on a multi-year and rotation scale, and to have some regular interactions with the different actors of the living labs. We underline that long-term is necessary to support systemic multi-year approach and reach new equilibrium. I already underlined this. So the researcher have more a target of recording the performance, but also to define the innovative cropping system with the farmer. And the decision and risk are shared between farmer, researcher, and advisor during this project. And this is a continuation now there is a continuation now, sorry, with another project that is agroecological transit. It is an Horizon Europe project. And doing this, to share the risk, we decide to compare the yield in the innovative systems compared to the control systems. And if there are a decrease of the yield, the losses is cut by 2, half for the farmer and half for the research center. And so there is a risk sharing between the different actors in order to be able to go further in the development of innovative practices. So this needs very intensive interaction schemes. So there are some interactions at the level of the project for different impact and also for agroecology transact with the different with other living labs that are ongoing during this project, and we share the difficulties that we face, how to solve some point and so on. And there, it's a very rich exchange at this level. There are also some exchange with the farmer on a day-to-day exchange, because if there are some problems that occur on the field, we have to react very rapidly. And both the researcher and the farmer and the advisor start to reflect about how to solve this and to be able to overcome the difficulties. And there are also some interactions between the farmers in the groups 2 times a year, in order to exchange about the solution that were developed and to propose some and to evaluate some innovative solutions for the next year. Yes, I think that's it. So the challenge and the advice also, if we want to develop this living lab further, we don't have to underestimate the time that is needed really to set up the initial groups, share visions. All the participants have to clearly have the same issue to solve in order to progress all together. And we have to start, we propose, after this different experience, to start with a small number of farms in order to maintain very high mobilizations of them, and to be able to have a huge interaction with each of them. But what is important is to have also a high diversity of point of view from this starting point. So I already underlined the importance of sociologist experience because this is a problem in these living labs. There are very huge interactions between different people, between farmers, but also with, for example, the downstream part of the value chain and so on. And there you have to manage these interactions, because there are some interactions under risk, as we can say, and we have to have some good methodology to make it. So the challenge is to maintain the farmer involved also in the groups, and then this need to animate these living labs, to have some frequent exchanges and at different level, as I already underlined. Yes, for this I think it was also already defined before. Reactivity and flexibility. So as I already said, we are in the life situations, so we have to react quickly, because the farmer take risk, and we have to adapt if there are some evolutions of the situations. Aside from our experience, we have also the experience that we collect in the different impact project, and there we underline also the need to have a huge strong alliance between the scientific and practitioner knowledge before the start of the project in order to be clear about what are our main and shared objectives during the project. Research in actions, so there are also a difference between the times of the farmer. They need to have direct solutions to the problem they face, and to be able to project themselves in a short and medium times. But for the research, often we need more times to have a view on the whole, for example, rotations, in order to be clear about, okay, what are the real performance of the innovations that we implement. So there we can see also tensions. We must be able to highlight the signal at the social level if there are some tensions between the actors, if there are some questions that are not said, or some problems that are not said. We have to be able to identify them. And if there are some tensions and the goal of the different actors within the project not longer aligned, we must be able also to adapt and to make evolve the living labs. Okay, here it's only a tools that we develop in Develop Impact in order to give some flexibility in the different living labs. There were 25 living labs in this project. Anne is there, and you also participate to this project with seed money. So the seed money are some for unexpected needs during the project. We keep some money at the beginning of the project, and when there are some requests of the case study, and if they have an idea that is not foreseen, we can develop some support to implement it. I will not go through this slide because it's only some practices that were implemented in this different in this approach. So thanks for your attention. You can visit the Develop Impact sites to have more information also of other living labs that were implemented, and there's room for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our speakers. Great information to talk more about the context, the current soil needs in Belgium, and the work on the way as well. So really important context. We have a couple more presentations for you, and then I promise we'll have lots of time for questions. So hold on to them just a little bit longer for us. So I will, and that goes for the folks joining us online as well. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. Okay, so now that we know more about the soil context and about the soil mission, let's dive a little bit deeper into what is a soil health living lab and lighthouse. So before we actually going into the description of the thematic focus for the calls this year. So here you go. So the Soil Health Living Labs are collaborative initiatives to co-create knowledge and innovation. Soil Health Living Labs are defined as user-centered, place-based, and transdisciplinary research and innovation ecosystems, which involve land managers, scientists, and other relevant partners in systemic research and co-design, testing, monitoring, and evaluation of solutions in real-life settings to improve their effectiveness for soil health and accelerate adoption. Meanwhile, lighthouses are defined as places for demonstration of solutions, training, and communication that are exemplary in their performance in terms of soil health management. So to see this a little bit differently with this slide here, so Soil Health Living Labs are place-based and are collaborations between multiple partners that operate at regional and sub-regional levels and coordinate experiments on several sites within the regional or sub-regional area or the working landscapes. So as shown in the area on the image on the left here, so you will see that the lighthouses can be one of the many experimentation sites of the Living Lab, but they can also be a high impact, high performance lighthouse that is situated outside of the Living Lab. Meanwhile, the table here on the right is just recapping this information and looking at the scale, activities, and performance of soil health improvements. There you go. Perfect. So an essential, of course, characteristic of the Living Lab is the user-centric approach, which involves all the different stakeholders and actors and end users. So the specific actors will change, of course, depending on the focus, context, and objective of the Living Lab. But really, all the actors can be classified according to the quadruple helix model, which you can see here, which is really an extension of the usual, perhaps the typical public-private partnership. So here we're referring to the public-private people partnerships, the PPPP, and you can see that it's made out of 4 components. So again, representing all sectors of society. So we have academia, which could be universities or research centers, the public sectors representing governments and regional development agencies, policymakers, or the public sector in general. We also have industry, and that can consist of businesses of all sizes, and of course also associations. And finally, the 4th quadrant here that we have referring to the citizenship and civil society, that includes all end users and consumers, as well as other types of association. So these together form, the PPPP, and that enable the real co-creation and impact. So the soil mission, as we know, this mission implementation plan defines a set of criteria for the selection and setup of living labs in the context of the mission. So the criteria are classified around 4 main areas for living labs. We have the aims, activities, participants, and context. So the aims is referring to the innovation, co-creation, formal learning, societal challenges, improving soil health, related to ecosystem services, while activities the required activities include co-creation, co-development, experimentation, networking, knowledge exchange, and demonstration, in particular in the lighthouses. The participants, which I already referred to in the quadruple helix, so again, the public-private people partnership, the PPPP, speaking to real users and importance on demonstrations with the wider public policy arena. And finally, the context, which refers to the inclusion of multiple disciplines, methods, dimensions, again, place-based approach in real-life context, robust scientific setup for ecosystem assessments, and openness, communication, dissemination. There we go. So now that you understand a little bit better what a living lab is, let's look at the benefits of the living lab methodology and having a living lab, and why we should be using this approach. Living labs have been more and more recognized as an important tool to tackle societal problems, and they help address complex challenges that cannot be resolved by a single stakeholders. So by involving citizens and end users from the very first moment, living labs not only support the rapid scale-up of innovations, but it really helps achieve a broader societal acceptance. So in more detail, living labs can help with addressing complex challenges that cannot be solved by single stakeholders, as I mentioned. So speaking different languages, finding a common ground among different stakeholders with different approaches, but that share similar goals, evaluating, validating, and uptaking of practical solutions from users that typically would not be easy to reach out to. And here on this slide, you can see, so from the Living Lab focus on joint value co-creation, rapid prototyping, testing, and scaling up. So we're again talking about products and services. So within the open innovation ecosystem, Living Labs use an iterative feedback process for quick prototyping and testing, so that processes and projects results can quickly enter the market. So again, with cooperating in a multi-stakeholder team, it allows actors to become inspired, to accept different perspectives, to aim for the same goal, as I've mentioned before, to work together instead of side by side, so avoiding silos, finding faster, more quickly finding solutions that have been thoroughly evaluated from different perspectives and are therefore can be scaled more successfully and easily, and more, of course. So when setting up a living lab, the main components of the constellations need to be walked through multiple times with the core stakeholders and the living lab team to agree on the initial strategy as well as operational and business plans. So many tools have been developed to facilitate this process, and we'll be making those resources available, and we'll be going into them in more detail in the capacity building webinars that will be hosted through the Neshoons project and will be coming later, closer to the summer. So stay tuned for those, as we'll be spending a lot more time on these different pieces of components. But to give you an idea, so a living lab environment should have good relation with and access to the users, willing to be involved in innovation processes. Any living lab should be also having access to multi-contextual environments, as well as high-end technology and infrastructure that can support both the processes and user involvement and technology development and test. Each living lab environment also needs organization and methodologies suitable for its specific circumstances, always thinking of your own context. And finally, a living lab needs access to a diversity of expertise in terms of different partners that can contribute to the current activities. Equally important are the key principles of the approaches applied to the different living lab activities. So let's see here if I can, here you go. So you will see here, again, we're referring to the different land use types that are being defined under Neshoons, so the agricultural, urban, forestry, and industrial. So here you have a quick overview of the focus and the different players that might be fitting under each type of land use and the different types of living labs as well within these land uses. And just to show you here, because there's we've already referred to earlier to the Prep Soil project. Through Prep Soil, there's already been a map that's been developed to start tracking some of the information that was further developed in the Soil Mission Support Project under Horizon 2020, and which really tracks some of the initiatives. So we've gathered that information again for you, and we're supplementing now this information through Prep Soil. So you can already visit this map to see some of the initiatives that have been tracked, and that we're encouraging you to use this resource so that you can make connections and start building relationship towards the co-creation of living labs and projects. So you can see this map on the Prep Soil website or at the link, the precise link that's here on the map, on the site here. And to be noted, of course, that as part of the Soil Mission, these initiatives we don't have a Soil Mission funded soil health living lab or lighthouse just yet, so they do not necessarily meet the criteria under the Soil Mission, so to be noted, but they are great resources for you to make connections and build upon. So we definitely encourage you to visit the website and reach out. So here on the next few slides, we have some examples of successful living labs from that's been, let me just see here. Sorry, I might have to go back 1 second. Oh no, okay, we're good. So yes, we have a few examples of living labs that within the different land uses that we wanted to show you as a good reference case, of course. I might be missing a slide, but we'll see. So here we have PA for all, so precision agriculture for all, the first living lab in Serbia and one of the first in Europe to focus on precision agriculture. There you go, that was the slide that I thought was going to come first. We have ILVA, which you've heard already, of course, about. And next we have OMKI, an agroecology focused participatory experimentation network in Hungary that aims to promote agroecological transition. We have Poland-based Krakow Technology Park here that is the most complete one-stop shop for business operating in the country, and they have a portfolio of initiatives that include many green projects, so another one to check out. Torino Lab is an initiative aimed at creating more accessible conditions for companies and other interested parties to respond to concrete needs of the territory, the public administration, and the citizen. And finally, we have Save Our Soil for Life, a demonstration project that aims to contribute to the implementation on a municipal scale of European guidelines on soil protection and urban regeneration. So some great examples for you to further look. We'll be, of course, sharing this information, the recording and the slides, so that you may visit the websites and get in touch as you wish. And that's it for me, so I will turn it back to Julia to cover the thematic focus of the 2023 calls. Thank you.
Just one remark, going back to the previous slides, all the previous ones are all certified living labs, certified by ENOL, which is the network of living labs. And we have 2 representatives here in the room, so if you want to also to ask more information later, you would be happy to have a representative from Biosense, Diana and Greet. I think you can present a bit the work of ILVO in general. The last one instead is an initiative that is not ENOL certified, so it's a bit different from the long-term perspective that our living labs ensure. Sorry, this is a disclaimer, a bit of advertisement for me as well. Going back to the thematic focus of the 23, so every year the Commission will fund living labs. These are in 2023 is the first opportunities for living labs to receive funding to support their development, their establishment in most of the cases. So there's going to be 2 topics. There are 2 topics open, and they're expiring on the 20th of September at 5 p.m. Brussels time. It's easy for you to remember that, but be careful because at 16:59 the applications will be closed. So it's really important that you're ready well in advance. There's 2 topics because there's a main difference. There is a bottom-up call and a top-down call. The bottom-up is the 0108, which is open to any of the mission-specific objectives we saw before. And that's why they don't want to limit the living lab creations. So you're really free to choose the focus and the different activity you're going to implement. On the other side, the 09 is a top-down. They really want to ensure living labs to start working on carbon farming. So there's 2 specific areas. We will see more in details the difference. You have here the links. What is important is that this is a single submission, so all your proposal needs to be submitted by the given deadline. It needs to be submitted on the EC portal, the funding and tending portals. It's not possible to submit papers. I mean, this was a long time ago, but just good to remind it. And the good news is that there are research and innovation actions, meaning you will receive 100% of funding for every type of organization. So this is really good because they really want to support the development and participation of everyone. What is important is that in both calls, you will need to create a network of living labs. So it's a tiny, you need to have 4 to 5 living labs in each project. Each consortium needs to have 4 to 5 living labs. The usual rules from Horizon, if you're familiar with that, will apply. So you need to have at least 3 countries, European Union members or associated countries. But what is important is really that you, beyond creating your living lab, it is that you start understanding what is there, and that's why the map Isabel was presenting you before is really useful, is to start understanding what is going on. And Isabel and Dolinda later will present a bit more how we will support you in that as well. But it's really important to, unfortunately, the Commission developed this nice image only this morning and we didn't have the chance to include it, but we can send it or update the slides before sending them. Is this the picture you saw before that Isabel was showing the different sides of a living lab and the lighthouses? All of this needs to be replicated in the consortium 4 to 5 times at least. Of course, you're welcome to have more living labs in your consortium. In terms of funding, the 08, so the bottom up, the open one that is open to all the different subjects, is expected to fund 3 projects, so 15 living labs at least, and 36 million euros available. On the other side, the carbon farming will fund only 1 project for 12 million. So each cluster of living labs will have 12 million fundings. You can see here that the 08 is open to address all the different specific objectives we saw before, except the organic carbon stock. So if you're interested in the carbon stock, you need to focus on the 09. What is important also to address is that only 1 application will be funded this year. So it's really important that at country level you don't compete with each other, but you work together. And that's what we also want you to do later in the engagement, is really try to see how you can work together and do not compete with each other, but really apply together with all the different sides that you can contribute to. Oh, okay, that's it. That was easy. But now comes the difficult part, questions and answers. So, of course, this is open also to all the previous speakers. Is there any questions here or?
Nothing online, yeah.
There's a question.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna from the Forum. I had a question about the certification of the living labs. Do all the living labs have to buy a visa?
No. Okay, thank you. No, there is no. NO is an entity that certifies living labs. The certification is not expected in the applicants. Also, there is no expectations on the readiness level towards the criteria the Commission identified. It's a path. It's not that you create a living lab in a couple of days. So it's really ensure that you have the actors to build together the living lab and to start co-creating. Another aspect that it was not included, but we just received clarifications this morning, so I'm really sorry, but you're lucky to have this news. In the call, you will see that there is the possibility to have funding support to third parties, meaning that inside your consortium, you will have the possibility either to open calls or to dedicate part of this 12 millions per project to engage the stakeholders that you didn't manage to invite in your consortium yet. So this is a good opportunity because sometimes it's really tricky to keep the stakeholders engaged.
That's for the two, top-down and bottom-up?
Both of them.
What you mean with you can open calls, that's for new sites to get in, or what do you mean?
You can decide in your application. There is no limitations. Of course, the detailed guidelines is included in the work program because officially we cannot provide too much information. The legal basis is the EC portal, but what it's clear reading the text is that there is the possibility to dedicate part of your budget to funding, to financial support to third parties. Sorry, and this means in general this is done through an open call that the project itself run. So you can launch a call and say you will select stakeholders, actors, sites, that's really open for you to decide what is your need in your project. And that...
Yeah, because how many, we have one living lab, how many real partners would there be in one living lab in the consortium? And how many would you then, I mean, because indeed you can involve other third parties, but so who is then a partner and who do you involve, like a site, one site manager is then a third party? Or?
So in the mission implementation plan, what you see is that they define living labs as having at least from 10 to 20 sites. They wrote a mission implementation plan a couple of years ago, and then we all came up saying, what? Nobody will apply. So they have a flexible approach. So what you need, and that's my personal advice, so it's not a commission advice. Disclaimer, can we add a disclaimer there? So it's what you need to ensure in your consortium is to have all the necessary actors for you to run the activities and to run the living labs and to engage the stakeholders. You don't necessarily need to engage the site owner, but you need to make sure to have access to them through your activity. It could be through associations of site owners. It's really flexible. I'm just giving ideas, and again, it's not a fixed rule, so each project needs to find their better recipe. Like being an Italian, we have different recipes for lasagna. You need to have different recipes for a project of living labs. But what is important is that also these calls, what can do, this funding support is to make you grow. So you don't start from 10 to 20 sites, but you can grow. You can grow during the project. That's another opportunity. Sorry.
Hello. Yes, we have one question from an online participant. Can one living lab be tackling one topic and include several sites from different countries working on the topic?
The living lab having multiple sites. So the idea is that the living lab is place-based and it really needs to connect with the ecosystems, with their ecosystem. They need to know and meet. So one living lab, unless we're really talking about a border, which makes sense, but a really lab really needs to work in its own specific setting. So it could be the different sites the person is talking about could be the starting point for multiple living labs that can work together in a project. Be shy.
How long does such a project take? How many years?
There is no indication, but I think it's around 4 years. The average of European projects is from 3 to 5 years maximum. 4 is the standard duration. And what is important is that beyond these 4 years, you need to ensure to continue working, because especially if you're applying to the 2023, and that's why we're pushing a lot on the governance and the business models, because you will, if you're successful, you will start your project more likely in mid-24, meaning you will start mid-28, but we need to continue working until 2030 and 2050 to reach all the goals of the Green Deal, the mission soil. So it's really important that especially the first living labs to be funded have already in mind, because they will be called to collaborate with the living labs that will be funded in the later wave. So it's really important that you focus on the long term. It's not something that is expected in the proposal. You don't need to have it ready, but you need to demonstrate that you know you will have to work towards that. And another recommendations that you will see in the activities that are expected from the living labs is that you will need to, from the selected specific objectives, you will need to identify which indicators and which key performance indicators are better suitable for your situation. They don't want, with the Commission, also the criteria, they are guidance. It's not a fixed rule that if you don't have it, you will not be successful. You need to be able to adapt this to the specificity of your country, of your open innovation ecosystem you work on.
We have one more follow-up question from our participant online. I don't know if they would like to unmute themselves and come on the screen if they'd rather to ask their question. Or I can read it from the screen, so I'll see if they come on. Maybe. If not, no worries, I will read the question. Okay, so if one living lab needs to be within a country, then the constraint will be to find 10 to 20 sites within that country, and also that one proposal will limit itself to 3 to 4 countries, each one doing its own business. So not so much EU added value then.
Oh. The 10 to 20 sites, it's something that disappeared. I mean, it's still in the mission implementation plan, but after the feedback, every living lab or the different actors working in the different projects, the Commission used a bit more flexible approach. That's why you don't see the 10 to 20 sites mentioned in the calls topics. This is no longer there. So, and of course, it's also difficult for in some regions, it's hard to find 10 to 20 sites. What is important is that we're not talking of one farm, of one quarter, of one forest, of one wood, of one industry soil, is that we need to ensure that the living labs takes into considerations the needs of all the different peculiarity in the region. And that is the added value for the region and the specific area the living lab operates in. For in terms of European Union values, they don't want the living labs in projects to work, okay, I do my own stuff, you do your own stuff, that's good, thanks, we receive the money, we just share them together. No, they really want you to find a common path. So it could be that we have living labs from different regions tackling the same problem, and that's the picture we were showing before from EGP Soil, is really try to identify the same. Maybe we can go back super quickly, more or less. But I will go there and continue talking. Stop me when you see it. But it's really about, it could be that different regions have the same problems, but we in different land use types. So we can have a living lab focusing, almost there. Yeah. So here you see that the same problem is tackled by different regions. So it could be that living labs that focus on industrial living lab in Austria, who is really interested in soil erosion, can work together with the Belgium Atlantic Central, and there we may have a coastal rural living lab. And then in France, there is a post-industrial living lab that says, hey, I want to contribute to. So let's find solutions in our local ecosystems, and let's work together to see if we can find common path. And that's the European added value.
It's not so much a question as just a comment. I was asked by Matt Rosiers from the ELO, the European Landowners Organization, to let people know that the ELO is looking to join consortiums on projects, so they're willing to use their stakeholder network to join in these kinds of projects. So you can contact them if you're looking for, as you mentioned, this kind of network across Europe.
Thank you.
What is the minimum requirement for a living lab to be called a living lab? In terms of number of stakeholders, number of sites, number of topics, or can it just be one topic?
That's hard to say it from a no. Because in a NOL we have really rigid criteria to say what is a living lab and what is not.
Not a certified one.
No, exactly. But in order, forgetting and all, but in order for a living lab to be able to continue, you need to build trust. You need to, and you cannot over stress one single side. Because in a single side, you may have the farmers, may have the business value, all the value chain around, but you cannot go for your activities always to the same people. Also, because they will have a bias. I always give a non-soil related example, but the vacuum cleaner robots, I don't know, you know, the Zumba or whatever, it's a Roomba, sorry. If you go to my grandma and you take, she will say, I don't need it. I've always did it my entire life. I will do it. I don't need it. That's not a problem. If you come to me, I'm saying, thanks God for whoever invented it. If you go to a kid, oh yeah, that's nice. It's a nice toy. 3 people, same family, totally 3 different points of view. What the Living Lab needs to do is to not concentrate only on the grandma, not to concentrate only on me, not to concentrate only on my son, but really trying to bring these ideas together. And the more you have, the more you're sure the solutions you will develop are making sense for your ecosystem. Because that's what we presented before, is we want real operation. And that's why also we managed to convince the Commission to remove the numbers. As long as it's, so the only number is that they want to have at least 4 to 5 living labs in each project. But you're allowed to grow. You can start from a smaller project with a smaller group, but you're expected to grow. And that's most probably why we have this opportunity to have funding support and to allocate additional fundings, because the more you start to know your ecosystems, the more you realize of the actors you need to keep engaged. But I don't have a recipe for how many.
So you showed the 4 main actors being involved: academia, citizens, policy, and industry. If I remember well, yeah. Should they all be involved as a partner, or can they also be third parties? Yeah. Can they also be third parties? And what share of the money can you use for these third parties? I mean, is that half of the money, or 10%? No, or
there is a specific amount in the call, and I really recommend to have a look in the call text. There are all the specifications, and also in the call text, they're redirecting to the funding and to the Horizon rules. So I really recommend to have a look, but we can add an additional explanation in the FAQ of Nashoons to better explain that. In terms of this, I would involve at least a representative for each of them in the consortium. But that's beyond the Living Lab. That's the usual approach of any Horizon Europe. I've started in FP6, and at the time there was no consideration on the users. And the consideration of the users, social science and humanities, grown. And now it's really all the calls of Horizon Europe wants to ensure that you cover the entire value chain, that you have representatives or someone who can speak up the voice. So I would, if I had to write a proposal, I would do it. Again, disclaimer, me, Julia speaking, not a recipe of the Commission. Because that's how you can ensure that each of them can then help you approach all the different actors in the longer term.
Question, since monitoring is a big thing in the call, is there also, does the European Commission provides also open source monitoring tools so that the Living Labs can make use of that?
A fundamental source is, we start with the European Soil Observatory. So in the European, it's an initiative of the Commission, the Joint Research Center. We will probably publish again an information on that. It's EUSO, which is the official source, and it will collect all the different data on soil and across entire Europe. In addition, there are 2 projects that are just started their activities. I think they're starting in September or probably later, that are expected to support and develop tools and indicators for living labs. So we can help you and put you the links in the follow-up email, so you can follow up for that.
So the 4 or 5 living labs within a project have to tackle similar questions or questions within a certain subject, right? But to what extent do they have to be similar to each other? Should they be like very similar projects, just locally adapted to the circumstances, or can they be like 5 pretty different living labs around the common theme?
Both. The only strict rules is you need to identify at least 1 mission-specific objective, rule number 1. Rule number 2, you need to have at least 4 to 5 living labs. And also, hidden rule. A hidden rule that is not visible in the call. The mission implementation plan says that the 100 living labs needs to be from 100 different regions. So it doesn't make sense to have in a project 2 living labs in the same region. So.
From the philosophy of living labs is that it's kind of bottom-up development also for the method side, I presume. So when you write a project, obviously you want to see what we're going to do. But it's perhaps not entirely known beforehand what you want to, how you're going to do things exactly before you have started developing the living labs. So my question is, do you need to know all the places where you're going to do the living labs already, or and so you can be kind of vague about what the living labs will look like in terms of what you're going to decide with the stakeholders?
I don't know. What I can suggest for this is to ask a formal question on the help desk, because this is really answering on what the Commission will expect. So on this, I really don't know. I'm scared.
Do I understand well the last thing you have said? I think it's very important. You said the 100 living labs need to be from different regions. So it means, suppose there is interest in the soil health call and there is interest in the carbon farming call, even then there cannot be funded too for the region of Flanders, or we really need to work at provincial level then, because there are more than 100 countries in Europe, so
the indicators for the so this rule of the regions is not mentioned in the call, but in the mission implementation plan, the Commission says 100 living labs from 100 different regions at NUTS 2 level. So it's Wallonia, Brussels, Flanders.
So we really have to choose what of the objective we want to tackle. So we cannot have, okay, there is some interest in a living lab on soil biodiversity, and then there is another one interested to work on one of these objectives. That's not possible. So actually we have to all to agree what is the single thing we want to focus on.
Questions that we will ask the Commission. We will need to ask it to the Commission, and we will see if we can add a response in our FAQ help desk, or if it will need to be asked to the portal. I'm just reporting the indicators the mission will be evaluated on. So that's but I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a crucial question.
We have maybe just one point of clarification again. In one proposal,
can involve more than 4 to 5 living labs?
Yes, yes. The more the merrier. The less budget for you, but the more the merrier. 4 to 5 is the minimum. Okay, I'm done.
Good, great. Thank you so much, Julia. One second. Okay, thank you so much, Julia, for the great questions. Julia will have to leave soon, unfortunately, to catch our flight back home. So if you have any more questions, my colleague Delinda at the back here and I will be sticking around, of course, so feel free to come to us. But we'll also cover some of the other ways that we can answer your questions towards the end of today's event. But for now, and now I have to go all the way down to back to the next slide, so just give it a moment. Oh, there, went too far. Okay, so now you've heard from us quite a bit. Now we want to hear from you. So we've set up a little bit of time today for engagement for all of you, and that goes for those joining us online as well. So what we will do for the next 30 or so minutes is that we'll return at 4:05, so yeah, about that 30 minutes, is I will encourage you to break into just smaller groups to have discussions on a list of questions that I will put on the slides here in a moment. So break into small groups of 4 to 5, just so you can get to know a little bit better who else is in the room. We'll ask you to introduce yourselves, and again, I'll show the questions in a moment. We would ask that you identify perhaps just a note taker to note down just a few high key level points of discussion that will come up in conversations, since after 30 minutes we'll bring everyone back and we'll encourage you to share maybe just one item of interest that came up into your group so that we can really hear from everybody. So we'll be reporting back at 4:05. And here is and that's the other thing too, is that we have set up a Slido where we have the questions. So if it's easier for you to just type in your discussion points into the Slido, since we will have everyone online as well encouraged to participate into the Slido so you can answer the different questions. That's another tool available to you so that we can hear from you and use your comments and create synergies moving forward. So here is the list of proposed engagement sessions. We don't need to necessarily stick to these, but this is a way to break the ice. So of course you can introduce yourself, and then we set up some questions for national soil challenges. So what is the overall condition of the national and regional soil health? Which of the challenges mentioned in the soil mission can you recognize in your own region or in Belgium in general? And then speaking to the living lab opportunities, so discussing synergies for creating a living lab. So I will leave this slide here, and for everyone on the line, we'll be breaking everyone into smaller groups as well in the Zoom, and I will be putting the questions in the chat box so that everyone can have access to them. So we can break now, and if you need to grab a glass of water or some coffee as well to re-energize and then break into your own groups, feel free to do that, and we'll reconvene in 30 minutes. Okay, thank you. I hope everyone had some good conversations in the past 30 minutes. So we'll now go into the reporting back portion of the discussions. So we'll be inviting you to let us know of maybe 1 or 2 items of interest that might have come up from your conversations, and I will go for everyone online as well. If any discussions you would like to share with us, any points. So, okay, so let me see. I will maybe open it up to the folks online first and see if anyone would like to jump in and maybe share a couple items that came up in conversation with us in the room here. So feel free to either raise your hands or jump in if you would like to share anything, and don't be shy. We're all friends and family. Sure, yeah, we had a couple notes on the Slido, so maybe we can share that in the meantime. Perfect. So what is the overall condition of our national and regional soil health? So someone pointed out soil degradation being an important issue for the Belgium context. Challenges mentioned in the soil mission, recognizing in the own region or in Belgium. Examples, again, the importance of reducing desertification. Maybe to the next one. If you were to start a living lab, where would it be? Which land type would be relevant, and who else should be engaged? So in university with some researchers with the same experience in soil. I will focus on agricultural soil. I have research experience with some research groups in the entirety of Europe. I probably would like to ask them to collaborate. So that's great, already thinking to the next steps. And potential obstacle is the research grant. Very good. All right, and then we just had the one, or two, just in the agricultural. That's who we had online who replied to there. So I think that was it for the Slido. But again, anyone online, if you'd like to jump in, and feel free to share anything. I don't see any hands raised just yet, but definitely welcoming your input, if any. If not, I will turn it to everyone in the room. All right, so we'll do that. So anyone in the room would like to share a couple thoughts that came up in conversation? Anything interesting you'd like to share with the room? We have a shy group. Yes, please. Oh, and sorry, Delinda will bring the microphone so that the people online can hear you as well.
I think we're a bit grappling with the question of, okay, we're one region, Flanders, one of the most densely populated regions in the entirety of Europe. And so do we have to all go for the same challenge or solution objective? And what scope is there to collaborate between different topics, with different groups in the same region?
Yes.
Given that the soil implementation plan tells us that one region is Flanders, and then it's got a checkbox, and so we can abandon all efforts to to go for soil mission projects.
Yes.
That's a yes or no question.
Yeah, that's a good question, and as my colleague mentioned, that's a question that would be mostly to for the Secretariat, and for that we can certainly take it back as well. So as the Nishoons project, we can seek further clarification for the group, and then once we communicate, once we communicate back with everyone, we certainly share any information, but we also encourage you, as you know, you all have access as well to the help desk of the mission, so we definitely encourage you to also reach out to ask more pointed questions, since for us, we're here for the application support of the particular part of the support to applicants. But if you have any other questions that we may not at this time be able to respond, definitely encourage you to do some follow-ups, and ourselves as well will do the same, so that we can continue building a list of questions. And Ula, I don't know if you wanted to comment on this. So Ula is from Aarhus University, who is the coordinator on the Nishoons project.
I'm the project manager of Nishoons, and this question, I think it would really be a pity if you focus too much on this, because that was something the Commission said, I think it's 6 years ago they started to build this implementation plan, and it would be a pity if it kept you from creating applications, because one thing is to send an application, next thing is to be selected, and next thing is that the Commission might not get what they wanted from the start. So even though they had this idea, they haven't put it as a selection criteria, and it might be a selection criteria at the end that they want. Okay, they can see it's only only Belgium participants in the selected living labs, and they want to do some criteria for the later ones. So we will ask for clarification, but don't hold yourself back on this. That would really be a pity.
So the message is hurry up.
Yeah, we had some good ideas from different people in Flanders, I think, but then the question was, many ideas came from very particular solutions, like tillage or slurry application or compost application. So would it then mean, if they will not fund, maybe more than one, but not so many per region, would it then mean that the scope is preferably broader than just one management practice, or because from all the explanations about the living labs, it seems that you really can be focused on one specific challenge of finding a solution of one very specific problem. But if we now hear that actually there's only one or very few that have the chance to be funded, then maybe it's wiser to not to focus on one specific thing, but really have broader objectives of this. Or what is your advice on that?
For this specifically, it's again a difficult question to comment on at this time, since we're still determining a lot of the aspects around the calls and getting further information as well. So that's something that we can certainly take back. So let us do that and then provide further information as we receive it. But there will also be other, and I will present those in a moment, that there will be other opportunities in the future. It doesn't end with these national engagement events. We will keep building on and providing additional information through a variety of activities, and that's where your input and your questions come in very handy, is because we can keep building and then seek clarification and add this information in other channels we'll be disseminating the information through. So we can certainly take this back with us and then come back to you with more information.
Yeah, just because now the consortia are making, shaping, because September will be, it's quite far, but also soon.
Exactly. So the sooner that we get information, the better. And in the meantime, they can still be, like Ulla said, to not hold you back, to still get started on putting together, having the conversations and starting to lay down the foundations of your clusters are a good next step in the meantime. Yes?
Okay, one point that I've paid attention during our exchange, it's about the need to choose one of the topics, one of the target of the soil missions in our proposal. While with a systemic view, the soil is a systems.
Yes.
When you touch on one side, you have an impact on different dimensions. And how can you translate this in your proposal? Because it's very important, I think.
So if you were referring to the soil mission objectives for the calls, the list of 8 objectives. Yes. So exactly, and the mission, the Secretariat is very clear on this point, that the clusters are not necessarily to focus, they will not focus necessarily on one specific objective, is that implicitly you will be addressing many of them. So say you were going to be in an urban project that is about making more green spaces, you will be already tackling many of the different objectives. So it's not, so it's broader in this sense, and they're very much encouraging you to think about how the different ways that you're tackling objectives, and it's not the instructions we received is the more the better, almost, that just thinking through the system as you've mentioned, and not to focus on one sole objective. Any other comments from conversations or questions, and we'll try to answer them as best as we can. Not yet. Okay. Perfect. Very good. Thank you. And I'm just going to check. Great. Just online here. Okay, thank you for that. So we'll just close then today's event with a short. Oh, sorry, Ula, did you have?
I just remember.
Oh, sorry, we'll get you the mic just so everyone online can hear you as well.
I just remember the comment from the Commission right on this with the topics.
Yes.
So I just want to read up for you. Soil challenges coverage. It would, each project group of at least 4 to 5 living labs might choose to work on several soil health challenges, themes, mission objectives at the same time, and that they might also have living labs across different land use working on those common challenges. So this was the answer. What?
It's not in a nutshell.
Yeah, because
that's important. That's a very important thing because so you might address different challenges.
The idea from the Commission side is really a bottom up, that they don't have all the answers, and they expect that you use your creativity and see how this structure would work best for you. And then they evaluate and they clap in their hands, or
There's no requirement, right? There's no requirement to include many objectives, but it also means that there's no limitation. So should you choose to cover more than one objective in your proposal, my opinion would be that it might be seen as a more holistic approach in developing a project, but it doesn't limit you from focusing on one objective if you wanted to, although there might be a better opportunity to get funding if you did. So you can see it this way, that there's no set limitation around this.
They don't want to limit you.
Yeah, exactly. Door wide open. Very good. Okay, so just be mindful of time. Let me just go here. Perfect. So the last bit of this presentation, and to conclude today's event, we wanted to touch base and just let you know about some of the upcoming and current ways in which we can engage with you and support you in this process. So of course, there are the engagement events such as today's, and again, we are covering 43 countries with these engagement events. We also have a matchmaking tool that is available, so I'll speak to that in a moment in more detail, but that's online and to allow for more engagement post-event and during the events. We will have fact sheets and e-learning materials, so stay tuned, check the website. We'll have land use specific fact sheets to talk to you about some of the things to think through when you're developing your cluster and your proposal, and also some information about how to set up living labs. So more information to come very soon on this on the website. We also have our help desk and FAQ. So again, we're gathering your questions, we're gathering your comments, so that, as you might imagine, many people have the same types of questions. So we're gathering those, and we'll be putting the official responses online for you to review once we get the proper feedback. And we also have webinars on living lab methodologies coming up, as well as coaching. So we've reached out to mentors in different countries and different regions, and they will be available for you to reach out for one-on-one sessions for coaching as well, and available in local languages. And then we have thematic and events and webinars coming up, and more matchmaking at the international and thematic levels. So a good smorgasbord of ideas and just ways to engage with us. Definitely a good menu of activities that we're proposing and we'll have available to you in the next while, in addition to the ones that we have currently. So in more detail for you, currently for the individual coaching session, we have one mentor confirmed for Wallonia, Philippe Vanry, and this is a call for expressions of interest. We are still looking for a Flemish for Flemish mentor candidates. So if you are interested or know anyone interested who would like to step into the mentor role, and we're here as the Nashoons Project to really provide the resources and the training to become a mentor, so that you can, the mentor will be providing the coaching sessions one-on-one. Please reach out to us, since we would like to identify someone very quickly for the Flanders. Matchmaking sessions, the tool is now available and is online, so you can find it on our website at this address. You can subscribe and already see everyone who subscribed online, so you can start making connections in the country or in other regions as well. And then, as I mentioned before, the capacity building webinars and thematic events, stay tuned. We'll have more information on this very, very soon, more likely in April, but we'll be having some dates very soon for these opportunities to learn more and go into more detail in the various aspects of building a living lab and the different thematics as well. And that's, so that's the matchmaking platform. And this is it for today. So I just want to thank again our local regional experts that came to see us today and present. Thank you so very much. Thank you to our host for having us in their space today. Thank you for attending. We hope to hear more from you. We remain available. You can reach out to us. So here, of course, you have my colleagues and my information to reach out to us, but you can also, of course, go on the Nashoons website and reach out to the full consortium if you have any questions. And otherwise, we are on all socials, so feel free to tweet at us, ping us, whatever it might be. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We do have we set up a little bit of time for a reception, so for everyone online, thank you for attending, and we hope to hear from you very soon. For the folks in the room, we have more snacks and drinks at the back, so feel free to help yourself, and we remain available for questions. So thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.